Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in three ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast.
On today's podcast, we have Nick Petraglia. Great guy. Really enjoyed this episode. He was kind of the main man making everything happen behind the scenes at G Miami for that Division I program. He's pretty much worn every hat known to man, and he's now moved to Columbus to run the Ohio Junior Jackets here, so the OBJ AAA team. So excited to have him continue to be in Ohio. Really good episode. Dan, what did you take away?
Yeah, I had a great chat with them. I think you were starting to get a little bit sick of our Columbus love fest, but I think our local listeners will really enjoy that. But it was just a really, awesome conversation. Nick's a great guy. I met him once when I was a teenager, like years and years ago, and still remember him. Just super guy, and I'm really happy that he's in Columbus now.
Yeah, I definitely was sick of that, but we had a little bit of a Pittsburgh connection, and we finally brought it back around to Hockey IQ later in the episode. So sometimes you got to wait for the good stuff, and this might be one of those episodes. But honestly, I think everything was pretty great. I really enjoyed how he takes hockey beyond the rink. Hockey is a vehicle for teaching life lessons and how he goes about giving his best every day. And he's learned from some of the best in the business. I'm a huge Mitch Korn fan. Coach Katie is, but if you take your foot off the gas 1 second, he'll let you know about it. So, you're getting a hard worker with Nick, and such a genuine guy who really gets the whole scope of everything. It was an awesome episode.
Without further ado, our interview with Nick Petraglia.
All right. Welcome to the podcast. Trags, how we doing?
We're good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Super excited to have you on. Obviously, we have a lot of connections through the way here, but no, definitely excited to have you on. And now you're moved from Miami up to Columbus to work with the OBJ. So maybe give a quick background of your story and how you've become the executive vice president.
How far back do you need me to start?
Let's go all the way.
All the way back.
All the way.
So I'll try to do this quickly. I'm a Pittsburgh boy, born and raised there. Whole family's from that area. Fell in love with the game. I've got to give Mario Lemieux all the credit on that. I was lucky to grow up in the Lemieux era. So I was born in 1982. So if you do the math on all that, I was, a kid during his prime and 9-10 years old when they won their first couple Stanley Cups. And then you entered Yager and Francis and all the legends that started coming through town. So it was easy to fall in love with the game when you're watching greatness. And that's certainly what he was and what those teams were. And started playing. I actually got a late start playing hockey. If you kind of compare it to a lot of the people I played with, I started when I was 8 or 9 years old, played local house hockey with the Westmoreland Eagles, and didn't start playing AAA or travel or whatever you want to call it until I was probably a second year Pee-wee. So I played my youth hockey in the Pittsburgh area. When I was 14 years old, my family moved to Minnesota. I spent my 4 years in high school at Shattuck St. Mary's prep school. Had an unbelievable experience. Was around so many high-level hockey people, not just my teammates, but the coaches that were around us. Just an incredible experience. So my family actually still lives out there today. So that's home for me as well. And then made another big leap after my senior year. Didn't play junior hockey, went right into college. Was fortunate enough to have an opportunity at Miami. and then spent 20 amazing years at Miami University in Oxford in a number of different roles. So 4 years as a student athlete. We never left. Me and my wife were there for 20 straight years. So 4 years as a student athlete, right into grad school. Got my master's in sport behavior and performance, got right into coaching. I'm sure we'll get to this maybe a little later, but just an incredible network around me to teach me the game and teach me how to become an adult and just learn through the game of hockey. So I was able to do a couple years of my grad school as a volunteer, and then hired as a director of hockey operations for 2 or 3 years, doing video scouting reports, helping out on the ice, things of that nature, helping figure out the ins and outs of the program, and just learning from great people. And then spent 8 or 9 years as an assistant coach at Miami, and then a couple years in administrative roles as I transitioned out of coaching with the kids, starting to become real people. It was hard to be away and not around for their youth. So now I'm fortunate. We made a big move this past summer in June. We moved here to Columbus, and it's been an incredible journey for us. We feel like we've been here for 10 years already. So working with the Ohio AAA Blue Jackets and Eddie Ginger and all of our great coaches and great people here in Columbus, and just for the whole family, just an amazing place to raise the kids. And it's been good. It feels like I said 10 years already. It's only been 3 or 4 months, and here we are today. So I guess that's a quick version of the background and the story.
That was great. And I'll say on behalf of all of us in Columbus, welcome, and we're thrilled to have you here. There's so much to dive into, but I want to go back to the beginning before it slips too far out of, our purview. What do you attribute going from just starting to play travel hockey as a peewee to going on to Shattuck St. Mary for 4 years? Like how does that transition happen?
That's a good question. I guess the simple answer is it happens just by getting better every day and just living in the moment. It wasn't ever part of my mindset, I don't think, when I was a kid to get to any one place. I think I just loved the game. I think the world had a lot less distractions back then. So it's not like we were on the internet or social media or had advisors, or I think the world was a lot less crazy back then, to be honest. It was a simpler life. And it was really just about loving the game and working hard and getting better every day. And the Shattuck thing just kind of happened, where it was an opportunity for me and for my family. My dad ended up getting transferred out to Minnesota, and it was just right time, right place. I had no idea what we were in for, and just kind of did it, and it ended up working out. But I cannot sit here and say we had any master plan that we tried to follow, or we were looking for greener grass elsewhere. It was just, a day-to-day process where love the game, work hard, surround yourself with good people, and see where it takes you. So I never really set out to do anything other than just, play well for my team, to be honest with you.
Team player. I continually, when I did research for this, always heard how great of a team player you are. So I don't know, is that something your dad got you into, or where did that all come from? Or is it just in you to always be a team player?
Well, maybe that's what they say about guys that aren't very good too. When you look at, you got to say something nice, you got to go to that. But in all seriousness, that's what it's all about, right? Is being part of a team, being part of something bigger than yourself. To me, that's what the fun is being part of a team and working with other people and trying to figure it out and trying to contribute to a cause that's not just about you, especially if you're a competitive person and you want to win. Winning is more fun when you're doing it with other people. You go through ups and downs and adversity, and you need people to kind of pull you along and be part of that process. And to me, that's just always been part of my mindset. I just love being part of a team and around friends, and focus on relationships and growing the family that you get through the game. That's my favorite thing about hockey, is just the people are incredible. It doesn't matter where you are or what age you are, you just find good people in our game everywhere you go, and that's always been the most important thing to me, to be honest.
Yeah, and you've done a wonderful job down in Miami with the Brotherhood. know if you want to go far back on that story or just maybe what the Brotherhood meant to you or where that all came from and how it came about. Obviously, I got the background story, but what does the Brotherhood mean to you? Where does it come from, and why is it so deep and powerful to anyone who goes through the program?
Yeah, it means everything to me. I don't think you're gonna find too many people that love Miami as much as I do. To have 20 years, I never could have imagined I would have had 20-year experience in Oxford. And what it just means being your best every day, bringing your best self to the team and the program. And Miami is a holistic experience. It's not just about hockey or school or social life. I think you get a little bit of everything there at a very high level. It's a really special place, kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere else to go. So while you're there, you might as well invest and just be all in on what's around you. And I was just so fortunate. I wore a number of different hats and was in a bunch of different roles. But the people that were around me that I looked up to, the mentors, I owe everything to the guys like Coach Blasey and Mitch Korn and, other coaches I learned from. Chris Bergeron's the head coach there now. Jeff Blashill is the head coach of the Red Wings and was my assistant coach as a player. And those names that I mentioned are the guys that got me into coaching and gave me my first opportunity. They're the people I learned from. And when you look beyond that, if you look at just the whole program and you're talking about Brotherhood, it's about everybody that's ever been part of that program, starting with Coach Katie, who started the thing back in the late 70s. You have such a tight-knit group of alumni, and that's one thing that I really tried to put a lot into was continuing to help our program and our family grow through relationships and making sure everybody realized that you're always part of the program, whether you're a recruit, you're a current player, or you're an alum. It's always going to be part of your life. And seeing the guys come back for games and summer alumni events, it's just an experience that never stops. And you feel that energy and that support in so many different ways. And like I was saying before, I feel like that we'll probably keep coming back to this theme. It really is all about people. And for me, that was the place that felt right for me. It was the people that felt right to me. It's where I felt like I belonged. And I still do. So I'll always have a special place in my heart for Miami and always want that place and that program to obviously do great things.
Absolutely. That's so well said. I want to talk a little bit about culture. It's such a cliche. I wish it wasn't, because, what you're describing right there is like exactly what every organization, forget hockey team, but just general like organizations should strive for, but not everyone gets there, obviously. I was hoping you could kind of talk us through, because I'm curious genuinely, like what's your like role like with the Ohio AAA Blue Jackets, and how do you plan on bringing that culture to Columbus? Not that the culture in Columbus like needs, a major overhaul, but I'm just curious like what your take is on that.
Yeah, so the culture that exists here is what attracted me here in the first place. Relationships went way back just from having coached at Miami, and Columbus was always a place that we looked to help build our program. And you look at the guys we were able to bring over from Columbus to Oxford, Trent Volgehuber and Sean Corrali, Jack Rosovic, Kiefer Sherwood, Carson Meyer. There's just a bunch of good people that came from this area. And the one thing that has always stood out to me was the quality of the character and the work ethic. There's really good coaches and really good people all over this city. Columbus is a sneaky good hockey town. I've started to learn a lot more about it now that we're actually here. But people love the game here in Columbus. And I think we're only scratching the surface of what our potential is. I think it's a really unique landscape. Obviously, you have Ohio State that really just dominates, everybody's the sports world here when it comes to Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics. But I think professional sports is a different animal and brings out different passion. And the Blue Jackets, you have the crew and a soccer team, but you don't have Major League Baseball, you don't have football or the NFL, NBA. It's a hockey town, and we're right in the middle of the state. There's so much passion and excitement around the game and the Blue Jackets, and I see that continuing to grow. and it's really special, and I'm thankful to be part of it now. But when you talk about culture, we're certainly going to be about doing things the right way here. We have a responsibility, all of us, to help provide an experience and an environment for our kids to reach their potential in life. And it's not just about hockey, it's about all aspects, making sure that we're on the same page with parents, and we recognize that we're all in it together to help these kids grow and get better, again, every single day, and everything that they do through the ethics and the values that the game actually teaches you. And I've learned a lot already about how many people have the same beliefs and thoughts in this town. And I think the big challenge is for us to all find a way to work together and, just keep getting better and ultimately grow the game in Central Ohio, because I think there's a lot of room for growth, and I think we're heading in that direction.
That's a perfect segue to what I was just going to ask you about. So thank you for doing that. It's like you had my list in front of me. So you grew up in Pittsburgh. I grew up not in Columbus either, in Cincinnati. I'm curious, like, what you think about, actually, let me just back up. So Pittsburgh, you said you were growing up in the shadows of like the Mario Lemieux era, right? Yep. So that certainly influenced like the growth of youth hockey and just the sport in general in Pittsburgh. And this generation of kids is growing up with the Blue Jackets, whereas our generation did not, right? They didn't have that following, that team to like look to. Do you see Columbus hockey today, maybe obviously sans Mario, but like in the same spot that Pittsburgh was in when you were growing up, or how do you think about that?
I do. I think we're right in that sweet spot. And I'll also try to connect it back to this. So I think we're at the 20-year mark of the Blue Jackets being here. And, it takes a few generations to grow your hockey fan base and the culture and just the passion for the game in the city. And after 20 years, I think you're at that point. And then you really start to make an impact when you see the number of former Blue Jackets that are now retired from the game, choosing to make Columbus their home. And then they start naturally having kids and raising their families here. And more times than not, their kids get involved in the game, which leads to those former players being involved in the grassroots and coaching with youth hockey. And we're exactly at that point. I think Rick Nash is probably the name that everybody in this town would say was their first hero, their first superstar. And now he's in the front office. He's present. He's around. He's an amazing human being. Had the opportunity to meet him for the first time last month and was just amazed at the amount of humility that he has, considering how big of a name he is. He's everybody's hockey hero in Columbus, and he's just a normal dude. He's a high character person that seems to have time for everybody. He's a great role model. And that's just one example. You have so many others, and we're lucky in our program. We have tons of former Blue Jackets coaching, whether it's Andrew Castles or Feder Tooten. Rick Nash's brother James is coaching for us as well. You just have so many former Blue Jackets getting involved. That grows the game. And then you also have kids that grew up here that for the first time are now entering their primes of their career. So you look at Corrali and Connor Murphy and Jack Rosovic, the Sherwood brothers. All of those guys are NHL players now that grew up playing their youth hockey here. And, our kids have a chance to look up to those guys who are present. They still live here. They're around all the time in the summers and the off season. They're engaged with the kids. They're giving back. And you just have this culture where you have all of these experienced hockey people that are now present. They're giving back, and you only have anywhere to go but you're going to go up from there, right, when you have all of those people involved. And I think we're really lucky to be right in that sweet spot, like I said. And it's exciting. I think the timing's great for me to come be part of it and learn from all of those people as well.
All right, now that we've got the Columbus Love Fest out of the way between you two, we can move on to better things like Cleveland continuing to win the state titles.
So I'm from Pittsburgh, so easy with the Cleveland. I don't know if I'm the guy you want to talk on this one.
I'm a Steelers guy all the way through. I was born in Pittsburgh, spent my first 7 years there. All my family's from Pittsburgh. I'm fully in on the Steelers bandwagon all the way. I mean, I have mute tapes from 1988 till 92, literally with all the old beer commercial about Iron City, going downtown.
All right, that's
got
enough.
it all. All right, so we'll get the
I
Pittsburgh.
love it. Your accent's better than I could do. There we go.
But continue with like just great people, and you've been around a ton. You already named Blasi and a few others. And you actually kind of did the Coach Katie thing. You went from behind the bench and supported the team behind the scenes more and more. But I'm really curious about one of my favorite people in the entire world. He's just so entertaining, Mitch Korn, and your relationship with him, because he's different. And even guys at the NHL level will be like, yeah, he's just different and on a whole different level. If he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, it's a crime.
I would agree with you on that. He is, without question, the best at what he does. My relationship with him, Mitch, is like a second father to me. So fortunately for me, and the timing of when I was at Miami, I came into Oxford as an 18-year-old. Obviously, I was a goalie. So that made the connection with him much easier. And I knew I wanted to coach, from my experiences at Shattuck and, thinking about what I wanted my future to look like. I knew that hockey was my passion and I wanted it to be part of my life. I do think that I was smart enough to know that even though I made it to Division I hockey, that was probably the peak for me. I wasn't going to have a professional career. And I knew that coaching or some sort of role like that was going to be my way to keep the game part of my life in terms of my professional development and, what my career was going to be. And Mitch was the guy that took me under his wing, especially in the summer after my freshman, sophomore, junior year, when I was in school. The amount of time that I spent with him in the summer, just kind of learning and working under him. It is incredible how much I learned from him. He is legitimately the smartest person that I know. There's nobody that I've ever been around that works harder, that pays more attention to detail. And what I think his greatest strength is, other than his work ethic and attention to detail, would be his ability to communicate and teach to all different types of learners and people and ages, whether it's an NHL Hall of Fame goalie and Dominic Hasek to a 7-year-old kid that just started skating, and everybody in between. He has the ability to find a way to teach and communicate in a way that person can understand what his expertise is and what his wisdom is. And it was incredible to watch. I learned so much from him, and being around the operations that he oversaw, whether it be the rink or the hockey schools. He knows how to organize chaos better than anybody. And yes, he is so different, outside the box thinker. That's why I think he's always been ahead of the curve. And he's had so much success. He's not just going to settle for success right now and just keep doing things the way they've always been done. He's going to find newer and better ways to do things. He's adapted. He's coached at a high level, especially, goaltending. He's been in the league for over 30 years now. And if you look at the position and how much it's changed, it's almost like he's coached 3 or 4 different positions because they've been so different. And he's evolved and probably been as responsible as anybody is for the evolution in the position and the way it's been played, just because he's always found ways to adapt to the way the game's being played. And yeah, I owe so much to him, and have a great relationship and keep in touch with him very regularly to this day.
I got 2 quick things on Mitch. So actually the first time, really the only time I met Nick prior to this was when I was a teenager. I was a shooter at the Mitch Korn camp down in Cincinnati. And I remember, so Mitch, for like the audience who doesn't maybe know, he's this like short guy with this like thick New York Jewish accent. And like, he does not strike you as like a prototypical, whatever, quote unquote, like hockey guy. And I remember just being like deathly intimidated by him because, like Nick was saying, like his camp is controlled chaos and he doesn't wait for you. Like he doesn't care who you are. Like we're on his time. We're go, go, go. And I remember
Yep.
just being like, who is this guy? And like, how is he's obviously incredibly successful, but it just like it was just like a rough awakening for like 14-year-old me. So I still remember that like it was yesterday. And then the other quick thing is last summer I was down at Daryl Belfry's camp in Florida, and I was on the bench after a session, and it was me, Daryl, Mitch, and a few other coaches. And I just remember thinking like, I'm with like the two best hockey minds in the world right now, basically, like in my estimation, one for goalies and one how to score on them. And it was just like one of those, like, you'll never forget those moments.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for allowing me. I'm curious, like, if there's one thing you can point to that you learned from Mitch along the way that you take with you, everywhere you go, like you try to apply it to your life, something along those lines.
Yeah, that's actually easy. It is to bring your very best effort in everything that you do all of the time. That would sum it up, I think. The easiest, you even mentioned it a little bit right there. The expectations he has for everybody around him, especially as a coach. He wants to bring out the best in everybody, and it's going to be an everyday process, and it does not matter who you are. He expects you to give your very, very best. He demands that. And the best part about him is you're going to give that to him because he's giving it to you every single day. He does not take a day off. He does not take his foot off the gas. He is 100% effort all of the time. And it's mind over matter in some cases. Obviously, everybody has tough days, and there's days where you're tired or really don't feel like it. But to find the mental toughness and to figure out a way to dig deep and give your best, that's probably the biggest compliment I could give to him that I've learned as well. So yeah, that would probably be my answer.
What about his capitalistic nature that he checks out of the team hotel? Like, I remember in Washington, he was in the team hotel because he lives down in Florida now.
Yeah.
And he would check out every single road trip to his car and then get on the team plane just because he couldn't be that wasteful.
Yes, that is true. And
I'm assuming you brought that with you.
I've learned a lot from him in terms of how to manage money and just be responsible. Yes, absolutely. But that goes back to his integrity too. He could very easily, keep his stuff in the hotel room on a 2-day trip to New York City on a road trip and cost the New York Islanders, Washington Capitals, whatever team he's been with, the $299 hotel fee by just keeping his stuff in there. But it's not the right thing to do. So he would check out, and he's not going to take a shortcut or the easy way out on anything. Always try to do the right thing for the right reasons. And that would be another example. It's an extreme example and a quirky one for sure, but he's definitely all about that.
Again, he's different, but I know I love that point you just said there. There's no shortcuts. Like, you want a shortcut, the best way to have a shortcut is the discipline to do the work every single day, do your best every day. It's just exactly like you said. So I'm excited to have you down in Columbus, and again, continuing to stay in Ohio and keep the hockey strong here. And I'm hoping for the day that a Columbus team finally beats a Cleveland team and wins the state title. That would be great to see. But kind of curious of maybe that AAA program. What does an executive vice president do so people understand your role a little bit better? And then the key things that you're going to implement so everyone knows exactly what you're about.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with going back to what I said before about just, our job, all of us, everybody involved in the organization, is to provide the players an environment to reach their potential and make sure we have a development model in place where our kids can do that. Specifically for me, I'm in my first year. It's a new role, not only for myself, but for the organization. So I'm learning every day, trying to develop the relationships and get to know the people. But I think really what I'm focused on is making sure that our organization and the game is growing in Central Ohio, helping connect the dots wherever possible and grow those relationships and grow the family and the people that want to be part of our program. And really just making sure we're operating and communicating at a very high level. I think a lot of education needs to happen between parents and coaches, and just the communication of how to navigate the crazy hockey world and how to raise the kids in the game of hockey. And then just also helping our coaches on and off the ice, run their teams, run the program. It's been fun for me to get back on the ice with kids, and I don't coach any one team, so I've been able to hop around and help coach the goalies, help with drills here and there, and just kind of get to know everybody and help everyone. So it's been a really fun process for me so far, and we have a lot of work to do. We're looking at trying to do things differently and be better, even looking into the next year as we get out of this very unique circumstance that we're in right now with COVID, and hopefully get back to normal. How can we evolve and change with the times and do things even better? So again, it's going to all start with the people that we have part of our program, and making sure we all work together for the kids.
That's fantastic. Okay, so you've obviously dealt with parents for a long time, recruiting them and their kid obviously at Miami, and now on the youth side there's quite a bit of interaction obviously. Like, what would you say would be your advice, or what would you want parents to know about navigating the youth hockey scene? Maybe not just like at the AAA level, but just like generally speaking.
Yes, surround yourself with good people, people that you trust, people that have the same values that you have. Patience is a huge thing that doesn't exist enough. Understanding, especially hockey, this point that I'm about to make, I think it's probably true in all sports, but I think it's even more true in hockey because of the nature of our setup and the extra time that you might have with junior hockey and things like that. But there is no one way. There's no one path. There's no one timeline. Everybody is different. You can reach your potential no matter where you live if you just focus on getting better every day, learning, being part of a team, doing things the right way, getting the habits that are going to make you successful. That's the key. The key is to live in the moment and to just put in the work and dedicate yourself to being your best every single day, and trust that process. I think too often it becomes a race, and people will hop all around looking for the next best thing, or I think there's a little bit of a lack of accountability these days too. People are always, I shouldn't say people are always, I think there's a lot of examples of kids and families chasing it and hopping around, when the answer is really just, there's no substitute for hard work. Get better, and you're going to reach your potential. So it is easier said than done, but there are so many different ways to do it, and you just have to do it the way that's going to be best for you, because there's no one answer to that question.
Well said. Well said. I agree. You need to take time, and it's better to be overripe than underripe if you're going to go to a place. You want to make sure that you've got the skills and you're prepared. I think that's huge. And even more so mentally, of being able to process and think the game. Obviously, that's kind of what we do here at the Hockey IQ podcast. But curious to see, your thoughts around Hockey IQ, making sure that that's getting developed, not just the physical aspects, all the skills sessions that kids are doing, but everyone says game's 90% mental, but yet we're not putting that kind of resources to the mental training. Where's your head on that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is always a really fascinating debate, because there's a school of thought that people think that hockey IQ, you're just born with it, and it is what it is, and you either have it or you don't. And there's a school of thought that people think it can be learned and trained, and you can grow. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, for sure. I do think there's an aspect of hockey intelligence and just the way players and kids think the game that is just innate, and you do have it or you don't. But there is no question in my mind that it can get better. And in my opinion, it's the most important skill in the game, is the way you can think it. and process information. It's hard to teach. I think that you do that through habits and, being in situations, over and over and over again. I think the use of video is critical, and just learning the game. I think it's most important to start that at the grassroots level and instilling the right habits and understanding of the game. And I'm not talking about systems or forechecking or back. I'm just talking about just hockey instincts. And I'm a big proponent of actually the ADM, the American Development Model, with the small games and the tight spaces. I think that really teaches kids to make decisions and think in confined areas and think on their feet. And it's a very dynamic, ever-changing game, right? And I think that, at the younger levels, the smaller spaces has been very beneficial to their development, as opposed to going to see an 8-year-old play on full ice, which, there's some advantages to that too. I know this is a hot topic, but the small area stuff, I think, really is beneficial to hockey sense. Having good coaches and people that have understood the game at those levels is very important. And then the other thing I'll say, just as a player, you have to take ownership in your own hockey education, and you can do it in a number of different ways. For example, when you watch an NHL game at night, don't just watch it just to watch it. Like, watch it with a purpose. Watch the best players in the world and how they do things and the way they think and the plays they make, and their positioning, their reads. It's right in front of you every single night on TV when it's in season. Be a student of the game, and you can learn that way. But I'm interested. I know you guys talk about this a lot, and it's a big part of what you do. So interested to kind of throw that back at you too, and see what you think on the topic, because this is one of my favorite things, I think, to discuss. And it's a debate that's always fun.
Obviously, we think you can teach it. Otherwise, I don't think we'd have a newsletter going. So I think first step for all those young players out there is to get on the newsletter. Constantly doing something like this past week, we put out Setting the Edge, kind of how Johnny Gaudreau, not the biggest guy, but he's a great defensive player based on his stick work and how he angles and he forces players into bad spots and into teammates' help. So I'm with you on that. You can definitely teach it, and it's not always the easiest thing, but it's the most productive way. And we've had multiple guests on so far that have said the same thing, is it's all about getting them into those small areas. I helped my dad coach a Pee-wee practice, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we got the whole ice." I'm like, "That's way too much. You only need half the ice, really."
Yeah. The other thing I'll add, actually, I think one of the most important elements that goes into hockey IQ and people reaching their, max potential, it comes down to your passion and love and just how much you care about the game of hockey. Because when you obsess over it and you truly love it, you're going to do everything that you can to get better and to learn and to apply the things that you're seeing and being taught. Being coachable and being open-minded is so important. Recognizing and understanding that there's not just one way to do things, one way to play, one way to coach. Like, just be open-minded. Everybody can learn from everybody. And it's not just players learning from coaches. Coaches learn from players too. And I don't care what age you are. Just having a growth mindset, because the game's always changing and adapting and evolving as well. So the learning never stops. But I think that when you have that passion and love, you're certainly going to put more time and dedicate yourself to reaching your potential than those that don't have the love and passion. That's for sure.
Totally agree with that.
I got one more here for you, because I think this is so cool. It's just the environment of learning. In hometown Cleveland Browns, I think, are doing some good stuff here. Their entire training camp was not about preparing so much for the season. It was all about learning and how can the offense help the defense. So they're putting offensive line and defensive linemen together so they can learn from each other. What am I trying to do to you? How are you trying to attack me? All that kind of stuff. So I think that's huge, and creating that environment that even players are learning from each other and they're constantly asking questions. It's hard to create that environment, but it's something great, and something I've tried to do with Cookies, at Akron, is just learning from each other all the time, constant flow of information, and just kind of building that brotherhood like you had down in Miami.
Yeah. I was just going to say, in terms of the learning and the example you just had with the Browns, taking it back to hockey, I've spent a lot of time working with goalies over the years. And, when you look at that position and how much goaltenders have applied themselves to learning about shooting tendencies and just the game that happens in front of them, I think just recently players really started to buy in and dive into learning about the goaltending side of things too. And I love, when I have skill sessions and when I'm working with goalies, the forwards or the defensemen, the players that are out there they're interested in learning about that position and what those tendencies are and trying to understand the concepts, because it is a game of chess out there and you have to understand what your opposition is doing. And just knowledge is power, right? And gathering that wisdom, even though it's not your position, understanding what goes into that really just helps you understand the game. And that's all part of hockey IQ too. And just understanding other players' tendencies, even if you don't play that position. And I think that would be probably something that relates to that Browns example that you were getting at there.
Yeah, I love that. And we have a newsletter presentation coming out soon on solving the goalie. So keep an eye out for that. And Nick, just to hit on something you just said, for me personally, like shooting at those corn camps when I was a kid was like a huge step in my development, because it was really the first time that you've ever really, for me at least, like thought about like, okay, if I come in this way, what's the goalie's, perception? What's he saying? So that was a huge moment for me. And then just to follow up on that, I've thought a lot about how in the summers players used to, I don't know, this is kind of a generalization, but they would spend a lot of time like in the gym, like working out really. And whereas goalies, would like focus on like improving some aspect, maybe like a nuanced part of their game. And I think you're starting to see more and more players kind of like take the summer to, not that they're neglecting, fitness or anything like that, but trying to basically match these goalies tit for tat, because otherwise you're going to get left behind. So I think you're totally on there. I got a couple more quick questions for you. So you've scouted obviously when you were at Miami. How would you say you would evaluate, you're in the stands, how would you say you evaluate hockey IQ? Like when you're watching a game?
I actually think it's easy to evaluate. The hard part is developing and teaching it. Quite simply, when you're watching the game and you're paying attention to the details and the structure, the way things are happening, the smart players are going to be the ones that shine out there. They do things the right way. You see good decision making. You don't see as many mistakes. I think compete and just bringing your best every shift is something that's part of that. But when you see players think the game at a really high level and they're not trying to do everything themselves, they're making other players better around them, that's where you see hockey IQ. And when you see players work together and use each other, that's when the game is beautiful. And when you have 2 or 3 players out on the ice at the same time that have, similar hockey IQ and think the game and do it together, rather than the kid that's just so talented and skates great and, can wow you with his skills, but it's just an individualistic thing. That's great to watch, but that's not hockey. So it's the players that involve their teammates. They make the right decision with and without the puck, positionally, angles, change of speed, puck protection, just all the little, we could go on and on. But when you see it, it's pretty easy to see it because it stands out. And the players that have that intelligence are the ones that are consistent and play at a high level. And, when you show up any day of the week, they're going to be one of the best players on the ice because, if they have the compete and the intelligence, you have those 2 things, you're in really, really good shape. Give me that kid every single time, a kid that works hard and can really think it, and you're going to have success.
That's awesome. All right, last one for me, and thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Finish this sentence for me. I will be happy with the state of the AAA Ohio Blue Jackets in 5 years if
every kid that has played for us can say that it made them a better person.
Love that. Nice and concise. That's perfect.
Taxpayers.
That's what it's all. Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's not about guys getting to the NHL or college scholarships. Obviously, we want that, but we want to have a positive impact on every single kid and family that plays for us, and we want to help prepare them for whatever they do in life, whether it's hockey or business or being a father or mother or whatever. Just reach your potential and take pride in being part of something bigger than yourself as well.
Sometimes you open your mouth and your inner cookie comes out. It's crazy.
No comment.
Yeah, he'll love that one. Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, that's the life you and what you guys do at Akron. That's what the game is all about. The game is about teaching life skills, and it doesn't matter what level you play it at. Those are the things you learn, and it instills, the values of hard work and how to be coachable and go through adversity and be accountable. And, that stuff's invaluable. That's what makes successful people. And there's no greater game in the world to learn those attributes than hockey. So what you guys do, in all seriousness, it's incredible. And I love following along and studying up on those things too.
Well, thank you for that. We do our best, and you do a wonderful job, and it's only going to get better and better down in Columbus under your guidance. So at the end of every episode, we love to give 2 minutes. Floor is all yours. You can talk about anything. The only thing we ask is if you give a nice book recommendation for our lifelong learners out there.
Oh man. The book, I will admit that's one thing that I wish I was better at. I am a terrible reader. My patience doesn't exist for that. I love listening to podcasts and watching documentaries and learning that way. Reading has always been something that I've wanted to be better at, but I still haven't figured that out. My favorite books, though, since you did ask, I've loved reading books. Coach K's books. I think Leading with the Heart was one that I loved. Phil Jackson's books, 11 Rings is the name of one of them. I've read most of their books, and I've just been fascinated with their leadership and the way they've run their organizations and programs and coached. So those have been some of my favorites. The legacy book about the All Blacks is one that I've kind of half read, and that would be the next one on my list. I keep kicking myself that I haven't finished it, but I want to start over, and that's kind of the book that is now my goal to finish, because I know that's a special one. But honestly, that's one area of my life I wish I was better at reading and staying up to date and learning that way, because I'm not very good at it, and I'll admit that.
Just like players, we all learn differently.
Yeah, we do, and that's not my favorite way to learn, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't try, because it is important. Just got to carve out the time for it and buckle down. But in terms of the open floor, I guess the biggest thing I'd want to say is there's nothing more important than just being yourself. I've learned that over the years. You have to figure out who you are and bring your very best self to the table every day and whatever you're doing. And be open-minded and respectful of others. You can learn from everybody. And the other thing is, you never really know what somebody's going through, and you never know when you're going to have an impact on another person's life. So always bring your best, be a good person, but be yourself. Don't try to do it any other way than the way you want to do it, and just be genuine. And, that's not just hockey, that's everything. And, I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that, myself included. I have to try to remind myself that all the time.
Awesome. That was really well said, and I think that's a great way to end this episode. So thank you again for coming on. Really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for tuning into the Hockey IQ podcast. We are Hockey's Arsenal, Greg Revac and Dan Dukart. Together, we've come together to create a platform and a community to expand on hockey intelligence, hockey IQ, whatever you want to call it. We're very passionate about seeing this game played smarter and better and continue to develop itself to the next level and staying on the cutting edge of things. So you can find us at Hockey's Arsenal on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're also at hockeysarsenal.com. From there, you can find some resources and some options to work with us. We're excited to continue this. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, follow, and share. You can also join up for our newsletter as well, where we're going to tackle anything Hockey IQ related. So we're excited to have everyone here and continue to build.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch you beauts here next week for a brand new episode.